labor movement. He would allow for you guys to at least, organize, and he would probably communicate with you guys.
First of all, I don't even think you guys. I think you're a part of this as well. You're not against organizing a labor movement, right? But
no, I'm
also,
not against that.
Also, can you crank up your volume a little bit on your end? Because I maxed it out, but people still are having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, my bad. A lot of calls.
No, it's all good. As far as what's better rooms for organizing, it's not even a necessary part of this discussion because
did Destiny do this interview? I have no idea. I was just linked this by a dear old friend of mine.
I know that. No. The reason why I'm saying it's not a necessary part of the discussion is because given the option between Gavin Newsom and JD Vance, I'm not saying that Gavin Newsom is going to be a situation than JD Vance. I understand and agree with, in theory, the harm reduction narratives. My argument is always around doing away with harm reduction narratives because the harm reduction narrative has led to two spectacular failures thus far, both in 2016 and also in 2020. And as far as playing hardball with Democrats who don't want to listen, who still want to hold on and maintain this harm reduction narrative, who still say that they want to appeal to this mythical moderate voter who's outside of who isn't a normal Democratic Party voter, like these guys that they want to turn to the Democratic Party. I'm willing to play hardball with them and say, look, I'll hold my vote back. But the reality of the matter is, if you're asking me sincerely, do you think that Gavin Newsom is going to be better than JD Vance? Of course. I mean, this is not something like Kamala Harris is objectively going to be better than Donald Trump. The miscommunication around this comes in large part due to me openly saying it's out of my hands at that point, because that was the second part that I mentioned. It's openly out of my hands at that point, and there's no way for me to overcome the way that the party is communicating what they want to do, and the fact that a lot of people hear that and immediately go, "Oh, this guy, he wants the Republicans to win." I don't.
Yeah, I don't think you want the Republicans to win. I don't think that at all. And here's where we agree on, actually. So I keep hearing you say,
I don't think he should have conceded this. Hasan does actually want the Republicans to win because that benefits Hasan's narrative, and Hasan wants to paint a world where everyone is miserable, everyone is feeling horrible, right? This is the lefty term for this is called agitprop, right? Agitation propaganda, right? What that means is when the working class is disenfranchised enough from everything, then they'll finally rise up and overthrow the bourgeoisie or something, right? This is an actual lefty term. Unfortunately, I've said this time and time again. Okay, the reason why this isn't a good showing by Adam Mockler is because Adam Mockler isn't terminally online enough to understand these lefty theory types. He doesn't understand what they actually believe, right? He just thinks, oh yeah, well, it just seems like a general socialist or whatever, right? But what Hasan practices is agitation propaganda. He practices agitprop, right? Ultimately, everything that he espouses during this debate is in service to some lefty ideal, right? Some USSR tinky ideal, right? Yeah, and once you begin to recognize that, then everything he does becomes incredibly obvious.
That you don't want Democrats to run on the harm reduction narrative in 2028. And I totally effing agree. If we're running on a harm reduction narrative in 2028, we have failed somewhere massively. We want to build an exciting, forward-looking message that can turn out not only our base, but Americans who have been struggling. We need to have something that is not just us unified to our opposition of Donald Trump. For the past decade, we have been defined by our opposition to Trump, and we need something more exciting. So I agree. We should not run on a harm reduction narrative in 2028. But what you just said, how you just worded your statements was not how you worded it when Jennifer Welch asked you that question.
No, I would vote third party because it's out of my hands at that point.
No, you said at that point it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, at that point it doesn't. Sorry, yeah. What I meant is it's out of my hands, which is the argument that I made with Kamala Harris after urging the campaign to listen to the warning signs that the people were giving them about the reluctance to address Gaza in a meaningful way, signaling that they would truly be an anti-war a party, even though Donald Trump is a fucking warmonger, trying to get them to communicate that there are meaningful differences between their design overall, not leaning in and not conceding on the white nativist anti-immigrant narratives, knowing full well how devastating Trump's mass deportations were going to look like. I poured hours and hours and hours of commentary into this, thousands of hours of commentary into this, and
Hasan hasn't won a debate since Andrew Tate. Yeah,
it's always reduced back to whatever reasonable soundbite that people can cling on to.
I would not say that Hasan has won this debate. I think that he probably got the result that he wanted, and I think it's mostly people. I don't know, man. I don't think it's the best showing from Adam Mockler, but I wouldn't say Hasan won this debate.
Say, oh, we got him. He's a third party guy.
What do you mean it's out of? Well, you said you would vote third party, but what do you mean it's out of your hands?
Oh, perfect.
Like you mean like we would lose at that point?
I don't know if we would necessarily. I don't know if we would lose because JD Vance is uniquely uncharismatic.
Yeah,
but
we saw that today.
I mean, we see that every day, right? I mean, he's fucking disaster. I still think that Gavin Newsom is particularly weak against JD Vance, unfortunately.
I think letting Hasan speak for too long of a time is also a losing point. Sadly enough, right? Like you don't want this guy to let the narrative settle in for his audience for too long, right? Like you need to be able to produce meaningful pushback. Yeah, in my opinion, right?
So I don't know. I feel like it would still be a toss-up at that point, partially because while JD Vance is not capable of holding the Trump coalition together, I don't even worry about JD Vance as much necessarily. I don't really worry about Marco Rubio. I worry about Tucker Carlson. I think Tucker Carlson has he's the real torch carrier of the MAGA movement. I don't even know if Donald Trump recognizes that yet or admits that personally, but I think it's there. And
he fits the mold of an outsider, populist, anti-establishment
television
person
guy who understands how to communicate. He is charismatic as well. So
that is really scary.
So he is the one I'm actually terrified of, more so than Marco Rubio, who is like a straight line neocon. He's not going to be able to do the populist shit. And JD Vance is basically like evil Pete Buttigieg, like role reversal Pete Buttigieg, where like he also has that like McKinsey consultant vibe to him. I like to say when, JD Vance comes into your neighborhood, you know that like the
whenever Hasan says consultant, what he actually means is Jew. Okay, just substitute every single time he says consultant for Jew, and everything starts making sense. All right, all the Groyper accounts that he follows and reposts and retweets, and whatever. Stalin himself was famously anti-Semitic. Okay. Just you have to understand the USSR lore, okay? You have to understand the USSR lore to truly understand and appreciate the homophobia, the transphobia, and the anti-Semitism, okay? All right, remember, he loves that shit, okay? It's not like he tries to stay away from that shit. He loves that shit, okay?
coal mine is shutting down. Like he has the attitude of a guy who's going to be like, we see you, we hear you, but we have to eliminate some redundancies.
Marxists
and I think
have
most
always
working class individuals, regardless of the MAGA cult, kind of see that he is insincere. So he doesn't have that populist element, and he tries to make up for it by being like this gross little groyper, even though he has an Indian wife and Indian children, and therefore even the super racists don't like him for that reason. So these are just like the two default positions that the Trump administration is like, looking at right now. But I do think it's like possibly going to be Tucker Carlson. Now, going back to Gavin Newsom versus JD Vance, Gavin Newsom unfortunately has a lot of the California stink associated with him. I love California. I live here. And there's a lot of exaggerations about how devastating California is, like how terrible the conditions are here. People are all doing crime and doing drugs and everyone's homeless on the street. But there is a real problem from the policy side of things with California. Gavin Newsom is, and he's demonstrated this already, beholden to corporate interests and will pretty aggressively go out to bat for corporate interests. And
bro, everyone's beholden to corporate interests. Hasan, do you think that you can do an entire stream on why Jeff Bezos is like scum the earth on Twitch, a platform that's essentially owned by Amazon? Like, do you think you're able to do that? Like, isn't that kind of beholden to corporate interests? Have you shit on Jeff Bezos even once during your entire like fucking tenure as a streamer? Like, yeah, like, don't you think you're beholden to corporate interests there? But
general,
sometimes he's pushed back on a lot of special interest groups in California, though. They're pretty progressive state overall.
But the number one problem facing all Americans, I think you and I will agree on, other than healthcare, is housing, right? Mm-hmm. And California has a huge issue with housing, and we have voted for a million different ballot initiatives at this point to pay for shelter, pay for additional tax revenue so that we can go and build new homes and things of that nature. And none of it ever gets done. There's a lot of institutional rot here as well. Not to get all abundist on this conversation, but there is a little bit of truth to what the abundist guys say.
It's a slur.
So that homelessness narrative will stick for the uneducated, but even for the educated, the educated voters, they will also recognize, people like myself, recognize the setbacks that Gavin Newsom has presented to combat the housing market issue in the state of California.
Yeah, so I guess a few things that I want to respond to. I agree with you about Newsom's electability problems, and I think a lot of people would agree. I mean, I have a massive liberal audience, and even they're not fully behind any candidate right now, especially not fully behind Newsom 2 years ahead of the election. I think that now is our time to use the leverage we have, and I think that's what you're trying to do during the Jennifer Welch podcast. And I want to keep returning to that conversation that you had, because you said in the conversation at that point it doesn't even matter, but you at this point mean it was out of your hands, right?
Yeah.
Can you clarify, what do you mean it was out of your hands?
So just and I also talked about my refusal to endorse Kamala Harris Harris as well, and we can get into that too. What I mean by that is exactly what I said in the 2024 election, where it was like, you can't, as a singular individual, or even with like the entire might of the media behind you, outflank the actual campaign. So if Gavin Newsom is running as the Gavin Newsom that we know so far, you know, he'll say certain things like, oh, I refuse to take money from AIPAC. Great. But then when push comes to shove, like, he will still be inconsistent on the issue of Israel. He won't like fully subscribe to you know, punishing Israeli leadership, or fully subscribe to like refusing any sort of arms sales to Israel. And outside of Israel, of course, you know, beholden to corporate interests when it comes to like the real estate lobby, anti-Medicare for all. If he runs as that, okay, there's no
AIPAC Jews Israel. Yeah, I mean, like he says, you know, in The Walking Dead, when they refuse to say the word they refuse to say the word zombie, and then they'll refer to every single other possible name for zombies: the walkers, the crawlers, the things. But then they'll refuse to say zombie. They'll refuse to say zombie, but they'll use every other name for it. I don't know. Like, I've just never heard them ever say zombie, right? But yeah, like, that's just kind of what it reminds me of. It's like zombie is like, it's the Jew.
Amount of advocacy that I can engage in that will make him look better.
Okay,
I can consistently talk about how much worse the Republican side is going to be.
You were asked if you would vote for him. And I'm not even saying you should have said yes in that moment, but you were asked, would you vote for him? And you said at that point, it doesn't even matter. Here's what I'm getting at here. Yeah. I think there was a very solid answer you could have given that didn't outrage the liberals online as much. And I know that a lot of people flung a lot of shit at you on Twitter. That's always what happens. But yeah, I think there was an answer where you could have been like, listen, I refuse to pre-commit to any candidate 2 years ahead of a primary. They have to earn my votes, and that's what I want to see. And I totally get, you're on stream like 8 hours a day. You're not always going to say everything perfectly. But here's where a lot of liberals online
spend so much time online. Holy.
I see a lot of people online saying all liberals want us to line up behind Gavin Newsom 2 years before a primary. And that's not even the argument that any of us are making. I think where a lot of liberals have
no, I already have pet. I'm looking for my second core drop. Yeah. I need my second core drop, and I'm certainly not going to get it on 32% enrage with streak 3. Okay, like, that's, yeah, I messed up. I need to start over my streak, sadly. And yeah, I'll fucking rework my way there, I guess. Fuck me.
Problems with the way you speak about the Democratic Party is that you try to minimize the gap between the Democratic and Republican Party. So I can totally grant that you meant to say, like, well, you were asked, would you vote for JD Vance or Gavin Newsom? You said I'd vote third party. At that point, it doesn't even matter. It feels like you're drawing a false equivalency. And then a few days later, you basically said Gavin Newsom will only be marginally better than whatever Republican candidate there is. Then you said Democrats have literally written you out of existence regarding trans people.
Wait, did you see the rest of that quote?
I watched the video, but yeah, I watched what's the rest of the quote?
Did you hear me say that marginal differences between each candidacy, like marginal differences between two parties, leads to drastically different outcomes for marginalized populations?
New Epstein files and economy destruction. Donald Trump. Wow. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant departments and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien and extraterrestrial life, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, and unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and any and all other information connected to these highly complex but extremely interesting and important matters. God bless America. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Having said that, however, from the eye of like a voter, they don't make that distinction at all, especially if they are coming at it from a privileged position, if it doesn't like attack, if it doesn't harm them at all. And not only that,
a marginal, so you're kind of conflating two things. When you say there's a marginal difference between the two parties, I think that signals to people that either way they vote, it doesn't really matter that much. That's how people take that. When you say trans people you said like Democrats would shoot trans people in the back of the head, that signals that Democrats aren't really that different than Republicans, when that's not true. There's not a marginal difference between Democrats and Republicans. There's a very meaningful difference. If it was like Obama versus McCain and you said there's a marginal difference, I said fine.
Democrats would, it's exaggeration. Democrats would kill trans people if it meant securing additional electoral votes. And that's not an argument that like Democrats are going to run on a policy of killing trans people. It's a hyperbolic statement about Democrats cutting out trans people, which, as you saw probably in this last week, in the aftermath of the fucking neo-Nazi MAGA dad, or not MAGA dad.
This is like, again, very sweepy, right? Like, yeah. I mean, you said it, okay? You said it. You got to own it now, okay? Like, you can't just say something like, oh, well, Americans deserved 9/11, right? Like, this is what he said. Oh, Americans deserved 9/11. And like, no, I was actually talking about the nuances of the situation. And I want to like go into the complexity of the issue, on how voters can, influence foreign policies that can affect other countries, which could cause extremist groups to rise up, right? It's like, no, like you need to at least own your position. At least when Steven makes like really extreme statements, at least he then like fully justifies the statement anyway, like even if he's introducing more nuance. But
the trans shooter that was a fucking huge neo-Nazi, who's apparently his son was also a neo-Nazi, who's in prison as well, which is, not very shocking. There were a lot of people floating around bad polls about, not bad necessarily from the polls are fine, but they were polls that made it seem as though the trans issue is something that we as Democrats should not actually advocate for. It was Laksha Jain. And I always go back to obviously the first week after the Kamala Harris election defeat, where a bunch of prominent Democrats who got yelled at, to be fair, by other Democrats in the caucus, but a bunch of prominent Democrats went on television and immediately were like, we lost because of the trans stuff. They put a lot of overemphasis in the Kamala Harris is going to give bottom surgeries to Guatemalan transgender prisoners in immigrant detention facilities. My argument always is, if the Democrats actually put forth policies that people have to attack, like the Republicans have to attack, then the trans issue just becomes unserious and a relic of the culture war that people don't pay attention to. And in the absence of definable policies that you can associate with the Democrats, they become very defined by what their enemy, the Republicans, define them as.
Yeah, so
that's also,
I don't actually I don't disagree with your analysis at the end there. I do think that if we had a more affirmative, unifying message, then people wouldn't care. Like Medicare for all would be really exciting for so many people. I heard you say this, and I actually agree there. But just because some Democrats went on TV after Kamala lost, and just because some Democrats that are floating polls around on Twitter that are showing people don't like trans, that doesn't mean Democrats don't care about trans people or have written them out of existence. Like the difference between Democrats and Republicans on trans people is not marginal. It is not slight. It is very, very meaningful. If you grew up in the state of Indiana, where I grew up, and you tell a counselor that you are having thoughts about,
I think this was Nick's. Sorry, I think this was Adam's. I think this was Adam's strongest point. The trans people point thing. I think this was his strongest point in the debate, and then everything like after this point, it was like kind of downhill from there. I think Hasan was actually unironically pressed by that when he was being called out by Adam Mockler, about saying one thing when you're being confronted, but then saying another when the two-faced methods, right? That he's resorting to essentially.
Like gender dysphoria, or you want to change your name, they have to go tell your parents. But if you go across the state borders in the state of Illinois, someone who you probably think is like a moderate billionaire, JB Pritzker, he's turned it into a sanctuary state where you can get I like
JB's policies. Yeah, I'm very aware of this distinction.
Okay, but wait a minute. So JB Pritzker, Andy Beshear, even Governor Newsom turned California into a sanctuary state. It is a very progressive state. So can you see how people are bothered when you then go on the stream, and I'm quoting you verbatim, you said Democrats have written you out of existence.
Yeah. I don't know why Hasan is doing this. Looks kind of weird to me. Might be sexual. Who knows? All right, but we keep on Hasaning. That's what we do, right?
Democrats don't give a fuck about you. And then you said later on, the marginalized identities have been left behind by the Democratic Party. You're kind of drawing a false equivalency. And then that brings me back to the Jennifer Welch clip. I'm trying to give you the strongest liberal argument here as to why people are mad. It's not because
and by the way, I've heard this argument. I used to make this argument myself.
Yeah, but you said at that point it doesn't even matter. And that kind of feeds into the broader apathy that you seem to be pushing towards. So there is a meaningful difference between Democrats and Republicans on trans issues, right? If you grew up in a Democrat or a Republican state, there's a meaningful difference between your quality of life. Can you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so a meaningful difference. There's a big difference. Okay, so
there is a meaningful difference between living in a democratic state, hopefully one that isn't captured by Republican state legislatures that will then, even under Democratic leadership within the White House, take advantage of the state legislature apparatus to still undermine trans existence and then take that all the way up the courts of the Supreme Court. There's a meaningful distinction between having a liberal Supreme Court majority versus a Republican Supreme Court majority, a super majority even. These are all things that I fully understand and fully agree to and don't want to happen. When I talk about the Democratic Party's lack of interest in like actively fighting back and counter messaging against the Republican misinformation around trans people, what I'm talking about is Democrats running from a place of fear. What I want the Democrats to do is to, one, not compromise at all when it comes to putting forth a counter messaging operation to go back and fight back against the Republican Party when it comes to trans issues. But also, this isn't even just about trans people either. This goes back to even undocumented migrants and migrants in general, like Haitians eating cats and dogs, all the endless amounts of attacks, and the notion that like undocumented migrants constitute a national security threat, the way that the Republicans present it. It's pure hysteria. Something that I've told Democrats over and over again, urged Democrats over and over again, even when Joe Biden was president early on, down to the DNC, where I talked talked to them directly and told them to address over and over again, with the hopes that they would, at the very least, push back against this, so we wouldn't have seemingly a more, like a bigger mandate, a bigger popular mandate for Donald Trump on issues such as that. I think every moment that the Democrats waste, not on the offensive, on affirmative policies and affirmative policy vision that is easily definable, is a moment where the conversation revolves around culture war issues, specifically attacking trans people, and it ends up harming trans people that way. There is a big difference between a blue state.
Yeah, but we're not talking about like, oh, whether or not it harms like trans people in the long run. We're talking about like, who would you rather vote for, or who you would rather support, right? Like, yeah, how, like, don't let perfection become the enemy of progress, right? That's the most important part. Don't let perfection become the enemy of progress, ultimately speaking, right?
And a red one in terms of trans existence. To deny that would be silly. I don't deny that at all.
Good. What about between like a Newsom, if Newsom got everything he wanted in America and JD Vance got everything he wanted in America, do you think there would be a meaningful difference for trans people?
Yes,
of course.
I do. Okay.
I mean, we're like Donald Trump's first action when he came into office. Like this might come as a surprise to people, maybe in your audience or people that have seen these clips, and assume that I don't think that there's any difference between a.
Oh yeah, throughout this entire thing, they Hasan keeps on saying like, oh yeah, well, I mean, chances are you just only seen the clips. You only seen the clips. It's the clips. You only seen the clips. You only seen the clips, right? Well, no, right? Adam Mockler did actually just watch like multiple streams of yours, right? Like he said so. He said that he's watched like literally full streams of your shit. Like what clips are you talking about, bro? Like says like multiple times he's watched entire streams. He's getting the full context. Like how many more does he has to watch? Like
Democratic leadership or Republican one. I will never work with Republicans. Well, I guess maybe Thomas Massey on like a very random issue. You know what I mean? A random issue that's like the Epstein files, something like that. But I don't agree with Republicans ideologically, and my criticisms of the Democratic.
But this Hasan will sound reasonable now, then tomorrow say stupid shit again. No, he's not reasonable even now because he's lying, right? Like like to me at the very least, like he's lying. He's just lying. Because these are not actually his positions. None of these are actually his positions. He's way too scared to actually argue his positions, right? His real positions is, I want to accelerate everything to the utmost fascism as fast as it could, so then people will have a proletariat awakening and have a revolution, right? That is his ultimate position. That is his true position, okay? When the mask is completely off and there's nothing to hide behind anymore, his actual true position is, his true position is, I ultimately don't believe in liberalism and I don't believe in capitalism. I want there to be communism and socialism. And I want there to be a central government in which we can delegate like top-down control economy around, and then basically revive the USSR, but in the United States actually, right? And you know, if we have to, and then we'll introduce re-education camps for anybody who still spreads nonsense ideas such as capitalism and gender expression and black people, right? In our glorious USSR of the United States, we will no longer have any colored people. We'll have just the brave Turkish, okay, Giga Chad Muslim Islamophobe, like fucking caliphate, right? Like that's his real positions. His real position is a lot more closer to that, right?
Revolve around their closeness to Republicans or their endless interest.
And the ideal government that he wants is ultimately fascistic. Yeah, the ideal government, he wants a fascist government. He does. He ultimately does actually want a fascist government. This is what he wants, right? So he's lying. He's just lying the entire time to Adam Mockler, and Adam Mockler falls for it. Okay, he falls for it, which is the worst part. Okay, because we all know that Hasan lies, but it's very he like Hasan is like wrapped behind many layers of like mask on, right? Mask on method works.
Interest in conceding to Republicans on certain issues, because that concession doesn't actually end up causing them to win elections. The only thing it actually ends up doing is those concessions actually normalize some of the Republican agenda items in the eyes of the base of the Democratic Party. And only until people realize how devastating the outcome of those policies are, do they turn around and go, oh, I have buyer's remorse now. Fell for it again award. I didn't realize that the party that said they were going to do mass deportations is actually doing mass deportations, or I didn't realize that those mass deportations were going to look so fucking violent.
Oh yeah, by the way, I believe that Hasan unironically voted for Donald Trump, okay? I will say that there's only like I don't know. I would say there's only like a 30% chance he actually voted for Kamala Harris. I don't believe that. I believe that he voted for Donald Trump, okay? The reason why I think this way is because if he really is an ideologue when it comes to this stuff, and he's like a champagne socialist or something, and he actually voted for what he truly believes in, he would vote for Donald Trump. The reason is because not only does he benefit from Trump's tax cuts, but if Trump is a fascist, right, which he agrees with, if Trump is a fascist, then he's closer to his ideal communist government than he ever will be, right? It will be the case in which you can easily turn a fascist government, right, like a Nazi government, into something like a communist government, because it's only like one step over, right? You just need to control the economy and restructure some things, right? Like he gets to change very little from like a Nazi government to a communist government. It's like one step above. Like it's just one. It's a side grade, right? Like he gets to make a side grade instead of like doing a liberal. Why the fuck would he want a liberal to win? That's like the furthest from his goals.
I'll think your title is clickbait until I see otherwise. Nobody mogs the Mockler.
I wish that was true, but thank you so much for the $10. It is clickbait. I don't think again, and I'm gonna say this again. I don't think Hasan mogged. I don't think Hasan mogged Adam Mockler, and I'm not even an Adam Mockler fan. I don't watch any of his content. Okay, but ultimately, I think this is something that Mockler has to realize over time, and Mockler is already starting off from a position of being skeptical about Hasan's beliefs, which I think is pretty good already, right? Most content creators don't start off with a skeptical position of Hasan's beliefs, right? I think that later on, Mockler will actually truly realize that like Hasan is toxic for everyone involved, right? I think this is a slow realization type shit. I don't think he's gonna get there on the first conversation, which is why I don't believe like Mockler like lost to Hasan, right? Yeah.
And so disgusting that my neighbors were going to be in fear.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with a lot of that. And I don't want you to think I was just watching clips of you. I watched your
Again, okay, I just want to clarify real quick. Dude, in the beginning, okay, Destiny didn't even realize that Hasan was like mask on the entire time, right? Even though Hasan was way more mask off back then, right? He had like Lenin shit and like fucking Che Guevara shit in the background of his streams, like his entire stream, all right? Destiny didn't even realize it until Hasan fucking backstabbed him, right? Or they had the Kamala Harris debate. Like, not even Destiny realized it. Destiny had to go through a lot to realize it, right? I don't know. Yeah. Like, I would say that Adam Mockler already realizes more now than Destiny has realized back then, right? It took Hasan backstabbing him for him to realize, which is like a personal matter, right? But,
no, I know.
It just felt like you were saying two different things at once. You take these really strong declarative statements or those positions about the Democratic Party, and like you quite literally said Democrats, or you said the marginalized identities have been left behind by the Democratic Party. And then you go on to explain a little bit more nuance that yes, growing up in a trans state,
they like him because he's hot. You should bring him up. What? No, dude. Being fat? To what? To stop. I don't think that's the valid angle. What? I wish.
Red state would be better than growing up in a blue state would be better than a red state as a trans
Of course.
person. So you do clarify that in the video that I watched. But can you then see how Democrats, or at least liberals on Twitter, who are just like seeing you repeatedly say this, Gavin Newsom will be marginally better than whatever the Democratic candidate is, but you then just said to me that you think he will be meaningfully better if he got into
marginal
the office.
differences in terms of policy in the way that they communicate it. Like Gavin Newsom, I don't know what he's going to run on in terms of defending trans people, right? Like I don't know how big of a part of his advocacy this will be. I can only look to what he's trying to do, what he's trying to present himself as right now, right? Because we can look at his experience as a governor in California, but then if there is a significant difference that he's communicating next because he has ambitions higher office, it's only causing to assume that he is going to probably pivot, like many other Democrats, to this mythical this center for the mythical moderate voter. Do you think that that's an unfair assessment? Let's just start there first of all.
That he shouldn't pivot to the center?
No. That judging by the position between what kind of trans protections that he has signed into law when he was the governor, when he is the governor of California, versus how he's communicating now about certain aspects of trans identity and trans issues is probably a pretty reliable way to comprehend whether or not he is going to pivot to the center on trans issues a little bit.
No, I don't think you
don't
can
think
conflate the way he talked. No, I don't think you can conflate the way he spoke to Charlie Kirk on the podcast with the way that he's actually ruled California. There is a very, very meaningful difference between the way that he's ruled California versus the way that Republicans would. And here's the problem.
I don't disagree with that. The reason why I'm asking that is
but here's the problem. There's a category error happening here where you keep saying that there's a marginal difference between the parties. And I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. You think there's a marginal policy difference between the parties because you think Democrats should be farther to the left and stand up for this stuff. But when you say that, a lot of liberals think that you're arguing that there's a marginal difference in outcomes. And you are conceding right here, there's not a marginal difference.
No, there's not a marginal difference in outcomes.
Okay, so I think that needs to be clarified more because that does kind of draw some apathy between voters. But going back to Gavin Newsom, no, he has quite literally changed the way California looks at trans people. Just because he gave an insufficient answer on Gavin Newsom's podcast doesn't lead me to believe that he's going to entirely throw trans people under the bus. Let me just go through this.
No, hold on. Not entirely, but do you feel? And I'm not trying to debate you on this. I'm just asking you sincerely. Do you think that it is indicative that there is at least in the way that he's communicating, a pivot to a more moderate position on trans issues because he calculates this as more electorally viable?
No. Was he asked about trans issues or trans sports in particular?
The pieces that I've seen is mostly talking about trans sports and saying that trans sports is a bridge to.
Bro, what is it with Hasan? It's so disgusting how Hasan weaponizes minorities like this, where it's only convenient for him to bring up minority rights when it's time to shit on the liberals, but then he doesn't care about minority rights otherwise, right? Like he doesn't acknowledge that voting Democrat will actually benefit LGBT people or it will benefit Black people or anything like that. He'll just go right towards he'll just go right towards I don't know, weaponizing for his own clout related purposes. Yeah, it's all very tiring.
Or something like that.
Yeah, and that can totally be insufficient for your worldview, and you can say that is not sufficiently progressive enough. But I think that to say that Gavin Newsom, because he said that to Charlie Kirk, that nullifies the way that he's actually ran in California. You're using that.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
I don't think it nullifies the way in California.
Yeah, get him.
Well, let me say this. Newsom has signed a law. Sorry.
I'm making an assessment off of, I know Gavin Newsom, just like Andy Bashar, who I have given tremendous props to, more so than Gavin Newsom, because he's doing it in fucking a Trump 35 state, right? Trump plus 35 state.
Yeah,
with a hostile state legislature too. So it's it's infinitely more difficult. He actually shows the rest of the Democratic Party, I use him as an example to show the rest of the Democratic Party that you don't have to be compromising. And the way he's talked about trans people is actually wonderful.
I think Adam Mockler also messed up on the fact that he should have pressed Hasan a lot more on he should have re-asked the question, and I think that this is the most important part. I think Adam Mockler should have asked the question to Hasan again. If it was Gavin Newsom versus JD Vance, who would you vote for, right? Who would you vote for? He should ask this question again, right? So you're gonna have a debate on the question, but you're not gonna ask him the question again. I don't fucking know. I don't know. That seems like a throw to me. That seems to me like a genuine throw. You're not gonna ask him the question that you guys came here to debate for. Yeah, I don't know. That seems like a big miss to me. I don't think I've heard Adam Mockler ask him the question again. You need to make him answer the question again. Okay, you need to make him answer it. He needed to do that, but he didn't.
Where he says these are Christian. These are my neighbor. God teaches me love my neighbor, not to hate my neighbor. I remember when he stood up at that state legislature member where he was like, you have to apologize to these constituents. These are your constituents as well. Wait, hold on one second. Can you take it off of emote only mode? What's going on? Why do people keep saying robot? Why do people keep spamming robots? Is there an issue?
Is my mic?
Which question? The original question. Who'd you rather vote for in the general election? JD Vance or Gavin Newsom, right? Ask him the question again, right? I don't think he's allowed to present any nuances until he answers, oh, I'm going to vote for Gavin Newsom. I don't think he should be allowed. I don't think he should be allowed to present any nuances until that point, because you need to show that you're actually on our side. You need to show that you're actually willing to play with our side, right?
Better now too. Sorry.
No, I've been hearing you clearly this entire time, but I don't know what the fuck's going on. I took it off emote mode. Is it effing? Oh, it's just a small lag and people lose their fucking minds over it. Is that what it is?
Liberals and leftists are agreeing, so the deep state's taking us down. They're like, we can't have agreement on a stream between the two factions.
It's stuttering on Hasan only. Huh? You've been lagging for the last 5 minutes. No, audio is an audio disaster, but it was only 8 seconds or so. It's fine now. Okay, sorry. They were just spamming the robot emoji over and over again, so I thought there was something devastating happening. Okay, What were we talking about? Oh yeah, I was saying Andy Bashar is glazing Andy Bashar for uncompromising on his values.
Business, bro.
Yes, that's especially within the confines of like what he is capable of doing. I mean, that's very impressive, and I think it should be a lesson that other Democrats should follow as well, and some do, and some are cowards. But as far as the Gavin Newsom thing, I am aware. I think it's like 49 LGBTQ plus bills that Gavin Newsom as governor has signed into law. I mean, as a mayor of San Francisco, his first nationally prominent act was literally to defend gay marriage in San Francisco. Like, I'm very familiar with Gavin Newsom's background. He's my governor, right? I know a lot about Gavin Newsom's background. What I am fearful of and what I worry about is the same exact pivot that we have seen from many Democrats that signal that they're invested in selling out trans people, or at least certain aspects of trans identity, whether it be sports, a conversation that starts off with the most appropriate angle to tackle that Republicans spend hundreds of millions of dollars against and create controversy around, this being, trans sports, to very quickly moving the conversation over to gender confirmation surgery and a litany of different anti-trans bills that basically lead to making it illegal to be trans in public. The conversation...
I don't think Newsom would go that far.
No. I don't think Newsom is going to go that far either.
Yeah.
But my point is, any concession that you're making about trans existence in public, instead of just simply moving the conversation back to a territory that is appropriate, a territory that is pertinent for every single person in America, something that is more consequential for the average person, groceries, ability, healthcare, things of that nature, is lost ground for no reason that then justifies the additional anti-trans bill come after that. Well, so you're opening the door to that conversation rather than stopping it. It's fucking true. My argument.
Nice.
No, dude, I totally agree that Democrats should stand on business when it comes to trans. Am I lagging at all?
Oh my God.
No, I'm the one who's lagging apparently a little bit.
Yeah,
It's crazy because it's not even fighting anymore.
I think it's after. You can't, now it's lagging for me too. I can barely hear you. But here's where I think the difference is. Like the big dog, small dog meme, where you say something intense and then you kind of say something not as intense.
You mean Mott and Bailey?
When you're on the podcast, when you're on your show, a lot of these statements are so Yeah, the Mott and Bailey, of course. I feel like you're pulling a little bit of a Mott and Bailey right now for non-Gen Z meme lingo. Like, you're on your show, and this isn't even meant to be like a confrontation or anything, just so you know. But like, I think this is genuinely where
they're saying it's bad. Wait, let's hold off for a second. Let's hold off for a second. Just wait it out. Sorry, it's gonna come back in a second. No. The lag comes and goes. To be honest, it's gone for me now. Is it good now? No, chat. Adam is not the one who brought up Mott and Bailey. I did. Okay, they're saying you're engaging in debate perpetry. I'm the one who did it. Okay, I'm the one who said Mott and Bailey. All right, go on.
Yeah, I don't want you to think this is some like confrontation where I'm trying to like pin you down or anything. But when you go on your show and your stream and these clips go viral in liberal circles, I think the friction comes from you saying stuff. And it's just important that I quote you verbatim. Like, Democrats have literally written you out of existence regarding trans people. Marginalized identities have been left behind by the Democratic Party. Democrats don't give a fuck about you. They would shoot you if it meant they could secure votes. And then I come on here and you're like, wait a minute. I do acknowledge that Newsom would be meaningfully better on trans issues. I do acknowledge that J.B. Pritzker is meaningfully better. Blue states are meaningfully better. I do. And then your strongest argument as to why Democrats are throwing them under the bus are some polls that you see on Twitter, not from Democratic Party leaders, but from like Lakshaya Jain or whatever. Some people after the 2024 election going on TV and saying something to the effect of, oh, we lost because of trans people. That's obviously bullshit. Get those people out of here. And then Gavin Newsom on Charlie Kirk's podcast. That's your evidence that the Democratic Party is throwing marginalized people or leaving marginalized people behind. I don't see it. And I do agree. We should
It's not just trans people either, by the way. This argument extends not just to trans people in general. It extends to different backgrounds as well, including but not limited to immigrants.
These are two different arguments you're making, though.
No, because the reason why is because of what you've also seen that comes usually fairly closely after the end of that clip, which is the assessment that corresponds to my broader outlook, my viewpoint, which is that there is no reason to make these sorts of concessions whatsoever. It's like random. These are people who are infinitely more.
But this is actually unwatchable. For the technical issues.
We don't have a disagreement on, that's the reason correctly word that, but I'm going to get to the foreign policy thing in a second.
In policy, but not outcome.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really important.
Yeah, because
that's a really important distinction.
I can celebrate Barack Obama's accomplishments of like adding pre-existing condition coverage to healthcare, or allowing people to stay under their parents' insurance program for 26 years old, or getting tens of millions of people healthcare through Medicare funding, even though the Republicans basically stopped that in red states for a very long time, and it led to tens of thousands of people dying. But at the end of the day, from where I'm standing, from the way I approach the subject matter, the difference is Democrats are offering, let's say 100,000 people a year are dying if 100,000 less people would die every single year if we had socialized medicine and there was no issues between access to coverage at the point of purchase, right? Because it's free. Versus 200,000 people die with the Republican agenda, but with the Democratic Party's agenda, 100,000 less people die. So the difference is still, from where I'm standing, 100,000 people that should get access to healthcare, but they're not getting access to healthcare.
Just because it's insufficient doesn't mean it's marginal in outcome, though. Like, we agree on this. We totally agree on the difference between policy and outcome. And I could even concede that Democrats and Republicans in the capitalistic system, like, I get what you're going at. They're both upholding the same liberal thing, but
there's also plenty of capitalist countries that already have these programs. I mean, virtually every single one of them does.
I still don't think you should say that there's a meaningful difference between the parties without saying you mean policy, because that could just, from my point of view, as a young 23-year-old dude, there's a lot of voter apathy in my generation. You obviously influence a lot of young people. And I have friends that I went to high school with that have texted me like before the 2024 election saying there's no difference between the parties. Both parties are the same. And we've obviously illustrated throughout this conversation, no, both parties are absolutely not the same.
Well, if they're watching me and not just watching the clips, they would know that there are differences. There are marginal differences in policy that yield massive differences in outcome.
Okay, this was Adam's strongest point, okay? When he was pressing Hasan on this, right? And talking about Hasan's Modern Bailey when it comes to presenting liberal explanations for leftist statements, right? Like leftist statements, but liberal, more nuanced and more liberal explanations, right? In order to get out of actually defending like retarded lefty like opinions, right?
Said that, however, another area where there's no difference, almost no difference whatsoever, is foreign policy.
Wait, another area where there's no difference.
Because there is one. So there is a difference
on healthcare.
I don't think that's true either, dude. It's just like lie after lie.
No, you said there was almost no difference. So we already established that there's a difference on trans issues. There's a difference on healthcare.
Yeah.
Meaningful outcomes on healthcare. Let's talk about foreign policy for a second.
But wait, before we move on to foreign policy, by the way, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't correctly word that, but I'm going to get to the foreign policy thing in a second. You understand where I'm coming from, though, right? Like, because from the perspective of people that are not, from the perspective of the average American.
Mockler trying to build a bridge build so hard, but Hasan burning it faster than Soviet crops. I think that Hasan, from his side, he probably think that he secured like a connection or something. But I think that Mockler is I think Mockler definitely, like, if I was Mockler, I would, and I didn't have like the prerequisite knowledge of how evil Hasan can be. I think I would just like come away with the thinking that Hasan is like way too weird to include in my coalition. Like, Hasan's opinions are just way too weird. Like, not necessarily bad, but way too weird specifically, right? To include in my coalition. But who knows? Maybe I'm co-posting, okay? I don't know if I'm co-posting or not, but like that would be my perception if I was like some kind of normie who watches Mockler or whatever. Like, I would think, I don't know about this one, chief, right?
The difference between being able to pay, $1,000 a month premiums and then having your service coverage denied at the aftermath of like a significant medical complication and not having that at all for tens of thousands of people is still it's still a devastating outcome, as opposed to the alternative, which is that they pay a significantly lower.
I also don't think that Hasan will ever win the battle for Adam Mockler's soul. I don't think that will ever happen. I don't think Hasan will ever convince Adam Mockler to become a socialist or a communist. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that kind of grooming is going to happen. Okay. Like, Adam Mockler is pretty staunchly like pro-liberal voting, liberal, like enthusiastic voting person, right? He's not like, yeah. I don't think any amount of Hasan talking will convince Adam Mockler to be communist or socialist or something.
Share in taxes and have that healthcare be financed by the government in a single payer style system. Like, that's a massive difference, right? One that the Democrats are not presenting as a unified vision.
Democrats are insufficient on healthcare. Yeah, I agree, but there's not a meaningful difference. Okay.
I don't know how Hasan convinces anybody above 100 IQ. He doesn't, right? Like, Hasan doesn't actually convince anybody. Everybody who watches him generally are people who already agree or find him hot, and then therefore are more inclined to agree with him or something, right? Like, ultimately, I just don't think Hasan is convincing. I just don't think Hasan is convincing in any way. And I've watched a crazy amount of Hasan at this point. Like, even outside of clips, I think I watched a crazy amount of Hasan. So yeah, like I just ultimately don't think he's convincing.
So we went through trans issues. There's not a marginal
maybe
difference there.
maybe that's
There's
just
a
my
meaningful
bias.
difference.
You know? Who knows?
We just talked about healthcare. I think that there is a meaningful difference between the parties. Would you say regarding outcomes?
No, what I'm saying is in terms of socialized
So you
medicine.
don't think there's a meaningful difference between outcomes between the Democratic and Republican Party on healthcare?
Between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, there is consensus on maintaining private healthcare. Would you agree?
There's a mortality gap. Yeah, but there's a mortality gap of
Yes.
30,000 people that would have died over the past decade.
Yes,
My uncle,
absolutely.
when he was like 22 years old, got diagnosed with this rare form of cancer. The ACA saved his life. That's meaningful. This is meaningful to Americans. Is it insufficient? Absolutely. Should we spend as much time as we can pulling Democrats to a more, public option version of healthcare? Absolutely. We can do this as much as we want. But
if we're looking at numbers, though, what we're still getting back to is the very meaningful difference between socialized medicine and privatized healthcare. And the reality of the matter is that while the mortality gap exists between the Democrats subsidizing the healthcare system, even though maintaining its private structure.
Do you know what the numbers would exactly look like? So
I actually don't know what I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know off the top of my head what the socialized medicine.
Let's say it is
gap would look
100,000
like.
people. Do you think 30,000 of those people are marginal? Let's say it is an extra 100,000 people that would have died. Do you think those 30,000 people are marginal or meaningful?
No, you understand the argument I'm making, right? I'm saying that 100,000 more people would survive if they didn't have their medical care covered, or if they didn't have their medical care denied. There are people right now in the United States of America that choose to forego diabetes medication and die because they just simply can't pay for it. Like that's not that's. I think you and I both agree that that's completely unacceptable, right?
Absolutely. I think
Okay.
the U.S.
Well,
healthcare system is pretty
from
awful.
my perspective.
But that's a truism. I mean, is it awful? Is it awful? People have to wait like 4 to 5 years in like European countries in order to get like trans healthcare. Okay, like people over there really does not get anything at all. like they're like fucking healthcare deficient. All right. Here in the United States, I mean, I guess it also depends on which state you're living in. Getting healthcare isn't so bad, right? You just work and you get healthcare along with your work. If you don't, then you have Medicare. Sorry, not yeah, you have Affordable Care Act, right? And Obamacare.
And from my perspective, that is a meaningful difference, is what I'm saying, especially when compared to the consensus that is represented as far as maintaining a private healthcare system. So it's even a much larger number, is my point.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So I think that
because
regarding
I will always agree with you when you say the Republicans are worse than the Democrats, regardless of like the hyperbole moments or whatever that people clip to present a false narrative that I very quickly will explain after the clip ends, usually, which is unfortunately outside of my hands because we do live in a clip culture. It's people want to argue past one another, but
you seem to minimize how different the parties are a lot, though, like a lot, and it's harmful.
Yeah,
dude.
because
like I said,
because the perspective that I'm coming at is the fact that a Democratic Party that still maintains that same consensus on maintaining private health care
is still meaningfully better.
But it doesn't. It ultimately doesn't matter. Like in the grand scheme of things, if we're saving 100,000 lives and the Democrats are saying no, we're only going to save 30,000 lives, then there's still 70,000 lives that are lost in the process. That doesn't matter to you?
Wait, what do you mean that doesn't matter?
I think we're talking past one another. There is a far larger number of people that are dying in the uniparty consensus.
Okay. I absolutely agree. There is a far larger number of people that are dying in the uniparty consensus, and due to that, the healthcare system needs to be reformed. It is currently insufficient, but I can grant that, and both say the 30,000 people that have saved their lives are meaningful, as we've agreed. So I think that we
don't have a disagreement on like that's the reason why I was also an advocate for the Democratic Party shutting down Congress when the Republicans were ironically trying to do the harm reduction narratives on their side, where they were like, well, every day that Congress is shut down, where we're not conceding to your very reasonable demands about funding healthcare and adding the additional COVID subsidies back, you're allowing tens of thousands of, or if not millions of public workers to be furloughed.
I mean, was Hasan arguing in favor of the Democrats during that time? Has he ever argued in favor of Democrats? I think that's another question that Adam Mockler should have posed, right? Like, why don't you talk about Democrat achievements a lot more often, right? Like, why do you always talk about how horrible the Democrats are for the United States? That's another big telling thing, that Hasan is just a grifter, right? Like he's just someone to stir up the American people, right?
And possibly die. Like the point I'm trying to make is in a much broader vision that is both politically beneficial, electorally beneficial, the Democrats refusing to take seriously because of the donations that they get from healthcare companies that want to maintain, that have a financial interest in maintaining a private healthcare system. The Democrats are writing off the additional 70,000 people, and they're getting away with this argument by presenting it as a lesser evil argument, because it's true. Lesser evil argument is the lesser evil argument. The harm reduction theory is correct, but because of the harm reduction theory being correct, the Democrats lean onto that rather than actually advocate for a bold vision. And at times times they even lose the election, but it seemingly doesn't matter, right?
I think what we should do before the 2028 primaries is push our party as much as possible to reject the type of special interest groups that have led to this over the past decade, have led to the Democratic Party kind of feeding into this. But yeah, so I don't mean to keep hammering down on that point, but I do want to go to foreign policy because I think we can illustrate that so can you just say if you agree, yes or no here? So the Democratic Party has meaningfully different outcomes when it comes to trans people. Yes, right. The Democratic Party has meaningfully different outcomes when it comes to healthcare.
The Democratic Party, marginal or not, in terms of their different approach to both, well, healthcare is even more marginal, but the Democratic Party's approach to these issues from the perspective of the people that are receiving it, from the perspective of the people that are looking at it, from the way that they angle the conversation, the way that they move to a centrist position on a lot of these key positions is marginally different, but marginal differences yield significant outcomes for the people.
So the average person views the policies as marginally different, even though they're the ones who are receiving the outcomes. Like the person who either gets insulin
100%. Do you think that the average American is making a reasonable, a rational decision when they're voting?
Not the average American, but the Americans that are affected. Like if you need insulin and you get rejected due to a Republican Party, that's meaningful. There's meaningful outcomes there.
Yeah, and yet they still make irrational choices all the time. I mean, I think I didn't think you'd disagree with me on that. Yeah, well, how many people with like immediate undocumented family members voted for Donald Trump?
Yeah, that's true.
They are insanely irrational in their decision making. That's why I always say you have to have a definable agenda that makes you that makes you viable at the elections. There's two different problems.
Wait. But what are you going to be what are you going to be offering towards these families, right? Like, are you just going to also tell them, well, I mean, I know exactly how to convince you. Socialism. Really? So your argument is going to work a lot better than, okay, well, I just want to get you the healthcare that you need right now, immediately, over the next 4 years. Really? You really think that your argument of oh, wait, we can't have any improvements to healthcare until we actually have perfect healthcare. Okay, how long will that take? Well, let's just say 30 years. And it may or may not happen. Really? That's the promise you want to give to people? Okay, all right, feel free to, I guess.
Actors, no matter what, though. People are going to be rational actors no matter what.
That's why you got to fucking bludgeon them in the head. That's why you got to bludgeon them in the head in the same way that Republicans unfortunately do very well and they have less structural hurdles than the Democrats do, obviously, in this situation, but they bludgeon people in the head by saying, make America great again. Here's what those values mean. And then they just like add a bunch of nonsense into it. They engage in hyperbole. They regularly
I never thought Ethan would be a better debater than Adam. Why not? Drunken master.
Will be definable by their policies. Build the wall. It's like very simple. It's very simple stuff that they actively.
Yeah, but there's something else that you need to keep in mind, okay? It's not about, because this is Adam Mockler's first debate against Hasan, maybe the only debate, who knows? But I don't think, I think by the time that Ethan Klein and Hasan debated one another, like they were actually enemies. They were unironically enemies, okay? So yes, Ethan Klein went into that with personal vindictiveness and with a plan to destroy him, right? I don't think Adam Mockler is going to this conversation specifically with that mindset because Hasan has not betrayed him yet, right? Hasan has not betrayed him yet, right? So yeah, like of course, like he's going to be less prepared for this debate, and yeah, whatever. But you know,
harp on, and the Democrats are constantly running on a defensive posture. And my argument,
in my opinion, Adam is being nice and not trying to be aggressive. Yeah, because he's not ready, and you know, a lot of other commentators have said this, and I think, and I do think that this is the reason why. I think that I think that Adam is not ready to contend with a left-wing grifter. Yeah, I just fundamentally don't think that Adam is ready to contend with a left-wing grifter. I think that he's unprepared for a left-wing grifter when there are absolutely left-wing grifters, right? For example, people like Anna Kasparian back then, but now she's just more right-wing now, right? Cenk Uygur, also that, right? Jimmy Dore, right? These are all left-wing grifters, right? But like, do you know how to argue against them? Yeah. They have their own sets of talking points and whatever, right? But it requires experience in order to like actually talk about these things.
Is the reason why I think they're running on a defensive posture is because they can lean into the harm reduction narratives, because the harm reduction narrative is a correct approach. It is correct in theory, but given that most voters are making irrational decisions, unless they're literally fucking bludgeoned in the head with it over and over again to spell out those party differences, they're not going to make a rational choice. And many of them are not even going to vote at all. My community, on the other hand, by the way, overwhelmingly voted for Kamala Harris, but that's besides the point. I mean, virtually every single.
I don't even know if that's the case. How do you even know that? Like, how did you like poll your community over this? Like,
successful person in my community voted for Kamala Harris, contrary to what people say.
If it's 2028, man, and we're running on like harm reduction narratives in the general, I will be very, very disappointed. I hope that we have I'm excited.
Okay, you'll be disappointed, so you understand what I'm saying, though, right? Then don't you feel like it would be out of your hands as far as like what you can do? Because at that point, I can lie to my audience. At that point, I can lie to my audience and be like, no, you guys don't understand. Kamala Harris, when she says we're gonna have the most lethal military, what she actually means is that she's gonna be anti-war as opposed to Donald Trump. No one's gonna fucking listen to me.
You say your audience, listen. We had an ideological primary, and if Gavin Newsom is the nominee, this obviously did not go our way. We will continue to pressure his administration, but the difference between voting for Gavin Newsom and a JD Vance, or voting third party and abstaining and lowering the threshold for JD Vance to win, is the difference between quite literally 15 million people dying due to USAID cuts, which Gavin Newsom would restore. It's the difference between like a mother in Sudan having a malaria vaccine for their infant son versus that malaria vaccine not being there and the son dying. There's multiple studies and models showing that 12 to 14 million people will die by 2030 due to the cuts of USAID.
That's like 2 Holocausts, my duder. That's like 2 Holocausts.
And I think that the onus is on us in 2028, whether it's Newsom or another candidate, to be at the end of the day, be like, yeah, we have to suck it up and we have to not only just reduce harm marginally.
I hope that Gavin Newsom never runs on even if he's going to restore USAID, I hope he doesn't try to run on restoring USAID, because I feel like that will lead to a significant defeat.
He should not run on restoring USAID.
No. Even if he's going to do it, I'm not even saying that's a bad thing. Yeah. I'm saying he should not be. He should not be running around being like, I'm going to restore USAID. That's why you should vote for me.
No, that's totally fine. But this matters. There's
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you on that either.
So what do you mean? It's
maybe it'll come across as a shock for people, but
what do you mean it's out of your hands at that point? I don't think it's out of our hands at that point.
What is out of my hands is that no matter what if people ask me about why Kamala Harris was not coming out and releasing a statement about the significant differences that she presented as opposed to the Biden administration's Gaza policy, because I think we agree that like she did not separate from Joe Biden in a meaningful way at all, right? Like she did, and that's a big part of why she lost. So so one of my biggest points of contention, especially leaving the DNC where I got basically blackpilled, I was like, I could not believe like how much people were celebrating it and how much people thought like, oh, we got this in the bag. When the situation on the ground showed a very different reality, at least from my perspective, when Kamala Harris refused to sever ties with Biden, and I know that would have been a complicated process regardless, and there would be a lot of drama surrounding it, but I think with expert messaging, that would have been very beneficial for Kamala Harris, similar to like Mark Carney versus, Justin Trudeau.
Hope this gives Hasan the balls to fight BTC on chorus, so then we can get real blood sports. Yeah, me too. But I don't know if BTC is willing to go hard on Hasan. I think Hasan's gonna pull the same shit, and then BTC will fall for it. Who knows, right? You guys have too much hope. Okay, you guys have too much hope. When again, these people don't really have a history of going hard against people like Hasan, right? They don't have a history of that. So how could you like pine that much hope onto people like BTC or Adam Mockler? It makes no sense. Oh, didn't mean to do that.
Like cutting the dead weight, basically taking out an unpopular figure and then rising from the ashes and presenting a bold new vision. Even within 107 days, she could have tried to do this. When they didn't do that, and they tried to win by hugging and kissing Liz Cheney, and tried to win by like going after this mythical moderate voter in the exact ways that Matt Iglesias and Jonathan Chait and all these other people presented as a positive, like a lot of these commentary folks.
BTC ain't going to be like Adam. Yeah, that's what you guys said about Adam. You guys said like, oh yeah, Adam isn't going to be like insert radio show host here who, basically gave him a fucking underhand interview, right? Like, I mean, like, stop having your hopes up, okay? You should become doom pilled like me, okay? Right? Nothing can never get better, okay? Things will never improve. Everybody will fall for Hasan's shit, and the Democratic Party will be destroyed.
That the Democrats do listen to for some reason. I don't know why. When they ran around with this pivot to the center and kept repeating it, and the consulting class kept repeating that this was like the appropriate thing to do.
Means Jewish people, by the way.
When I had two options, I could have just been like, well, guys, you have to understand Kamala Harris is actually going to be much better than Donald Trump, which I did bring up with regular frequency, especially as it pertains to what Donald Trump was presenting, mass deportations and what that would look like. And there are many, many videos where I, presented how terrifying a vision Donald Trump was spelling for the future of the country versus what Kamala Harris was presenting, which conceded, because this was another holdover from the Biden administration, conceded that undocumented migrants were actually a national security interest, a national security issue, that they were actually leading to crime, and that the only solution was a compromise position that wasn't mass deportations, but instead was like, deportation of some. That was completely unnecessary, because the main point that the Republicans drove home was built around a lie that undocumented migrants are responsible for a higher share of per capita crimes than natural born U.S. citizens are. That's never
Wait,
been
are you
the
not
truth.
okay with some deportations if someone's actually committing crimes? Because the stats say that undocumented immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than native-born citizens. They commit crimes at very low rates. But if somebody does commit a crime and they're caught here, are you okay with deportation? Say it's not ICE. Like,
it's entirely dependent on what the crime is. But I'm always going to be an advocate to make sure that like justice is served instead of like just immediately trying to deport someone. I would much rather have them sit in the prison system if they've done, especially if they've done a heinous crime, because there's no assurance that that person is actually going to stay in prison when they are sent to a different country. So
I actually don't even fault you for not endorsing Kamala in 2025. I mean, I personally think she was way better. And I'm sure that
no, why would you say that? No. This was the biggest throw. Why would you say that though? I don't even fault you. What? No. Ally of the year? Yeah, I didn't get it. Dude. Oh, come on. Hey, remember they did just a reminder, they made J-Stalk ally of the year for that. DG always making the good choices, I guess. I don't fucking know. Jesus.
I mean, we can talk about the impacts that Trump has had, and we'd agree. But I mean, yeah, if she's gonna run in such a risk-averse way, I can understand that. I just yeah, I think before we move on to the forward-looking message,
like my argument is Kamala Harris didn't present that vision appropriately, and that's why she lost. Like she should.
That was literally what Hasan was looking for, and you just threw him a bone. Like that was literally the line that Hasan was looking for like, oh my god, I knew it. Like, oh no, he's gonna be using that forever now. It's never gonna end. Oh my god. No, why would he do that? Why would he say that? It's so bad. That is such a big throw. That is like the most massive throw. Like, why would you say that?
Sat there and been like, what do you guys think mass deportation is going to look like? This is verbatim, bar for bar, what I told both Democrat consultants and also party members, including Ro Khanna and many others, both privately and publicly. I was like,
word now
explain to people what fucking mass deportations are going to look like. You guys are running scared. I know you see the polls that say 66% of the public want mass deportations. They don't know what that looks like. It's up to you to explain to them what that looks like. And when they don't do that and they cede ground unnecessarily on this argument, they end up causing a spectacular defeat where Donald Trump does come in and actually does start the process of mass deportations. That was my argument. And that's precisely what I mean when I say it's out of my hands at that point, because no matter how much I yelled both at the Democrats, no matter how much I advocated for every single day about how devastating a vision Donald Trump would look like if he actually won, the Democrats still chose what they chose to do. That's what I mean when I say it's out of my hands. I don't know exactly how Gavin Newsom is going to run. We don't know yet. It's too far out. But my assumption when I say it's out of my hands is that Gavin Newsom represents the same old business as usual politics that Kamala Harris ran on.
No, that's not what he meant by it's out of my hand. Oh my god. Hasan is so good at retroactively rewriting like what he said, right? Like, oh yeah, I actually meant this. Actually, I actually meant this. Actually, I actually meant this. Actually, I actually meant like this. And he shapes his retroactive like explanations for his statements depending on who he's talking to, right? If he's talking to a lefty, he'll be like, no, I actually mean like, dude, none of this matters because Republicans and Democrats are exactly the same, right? But then when he's talking to Adam Mockler, who is a liberal, he'll say something that appeases him, right? He'll say something like, well, I think that what I meant was that, the situation, blah, 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 right? He'll shape his response based on who he's talking to. He is a bold-faced liar. He's a two-faced snake, okay? Like he shapes his response in order. He's a politician. You know what? Props to Hasan, okay? He kind of is operating like the politician that he hates, right? The kind of person who shapes their response depending on who they're talking to, right? Yeah, like he's literally acting like the person that he hates the most. So Jesus, he has a knack for this. Maybe he should run for office. Jesus.
That Democrats have run on in the past, with the notable exceptions of Joe Biden and also Barack Obama, both ran on an objectively progressive policy agenda. They didn't legislate that way, but they did, objectively run on a much bolder policy vision than they actually ended up fulfilling. But my point is, if you don't do that, if you don't run a bold policy agenda focused vision.
You think Hasan would act differently if it was Cenk instead of Adam, you don't need to wonder. You don't need to think. Okay, Hasan already had a conversation with Chink. I think on Thanksgiving. Or something. I think that Hasan and Chink appeared on the same stream and they had a conversation and stuff. Dude, the reason why that was so cursed is because they literally were like anti-democratic party the entire time, and they were like hella hellbent on the like basically it's not even close to like the same presentation that Hasan is giving Adam Mockler right now, right? Yeah, like they were talking about Israel and Palestine. In fact, they were just focused on Israel and Palestine like almost the entire time, and how horrible the Democrats are, right? It was a completely different era. He does actually shape, unironically, like who he's talking to, depending on who he's talking to, his answers and stuff, right? If he's talking to like a DGer, right, he'll talk to the same way that like that he's talking to Adam Mockler right now, right? If he's talking to like a Republican, he'll talk about how much the Democrats suck. If he's talking to a lefty, then he'll talk about how much the Democrats suck, right? Like no matter what, he'll always try to change the way that he talks based on how much audience that he can gather for his streams, right? He wants to make it so then more people from another platform manages to come to his stream. And how do you do that? By simply trying to appeal to the most people possible. But how? By dishonestly changing the way that you talk about things, right? Yeah.
You are going to lose to the Democrats, and I fear that that's what Gavin Newsom is going to do, and that's why I meant like it's out of my hands at that point. There's nothing I can do to salvage the reputation of the party because I've been there. I've been there in 2016. I was there in 2020. Luckily, it worked out, and I was there in 2024, and it didn't work out again against Donald Trump. That's my argument.
Yeah, so I agree that Kamala Harris definitely should have taken more affirmative stances. One of my big problems with her is that she was super risk averse. I think that as a former prosecutor, there was a trope that she was just very meticulous with every single thing she does. And I think that's representative of a broader Democratic Party that is just very risk averse. And while they're risk averse, they'll also finger wag and shame you over and over for not voting for this candidate in that way. I mean, the Democratic Party definitely has me disillusioned. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it is out of
my another big issue with this is that Adam Mockler is not practicing tit for tat in this debate. Okay, as in like Adam Mockler right now is what he should be doing is he shouldn't be conceding any ground to Hasan. Okay, because he should ask for concession of ground back. Right. He should be asking. Basically, he should be asking the primary question again. Okay, so are you saying that you would rather vote for Gavin Newsom this time, right? Because you already conceded on so many things. You already conceded that Gavin Newsom would be objectively better than JD Vance, right? So why not just advocate for Gavin Newsom then? Why don't you do that, right? If Hasan answers Gavin Newsom, then okay, fine. It looks like he did concede some ground, right? If he did concede some ground, then maybe you can concede some ground back, right? That's fine. That's okay, okay? It's okay to concede ground to Hasan if he concedes some ground, right? But Hasan hasn't conceded any ground yet, right? But Adam is already throwing him the bone and is already giving up the debate, essentially, right? So it's just like there's so many parts here where I frankly don't know why people think that Adam is the Mockler. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see how Adam is the Mockler. Okay, I'm sorry. But, as a person who was never a fan of Adam Mockler, yeah, I don't see why people see that way. I'm sorry. Okay, but yeah, I mean, maybe he acts differently when he's debating conservatives. Who knows? But,
your hands at that point. I mean, the messaging maybe like the messaging apparatus of the Democratic Party. If Newsom and Vance are the nominee, it's not out of your hands. But there's still an entire administration that you can pressure and push if Newsom were to win in your direction. It's
yeah.
Not
I mean, I'm going to keep doing that.
I have no idea if this debate turns him into a no, it doesn't. Definitely not. Okay, I think Adam Mockler is almost definitely always going to be a hardline liberal. Okay, unless something crazy happens. I don't think that's ever going to be the case. Unless he's like kind of a Peace Corps person, but I don't think he's a Peace Corps person, at least from what I see at the very least. Because he has no good reason. Like he can't be basically he can't be audience captured like by his audience as much as Peace Corps has. But anyway, or fires him up with his embarrassment. I think that Adam Mockler could see the shit on Twitter right now. I think that he probably knows by now that people on Twitter are not happy with him, but I just don't know how much that will affect his opinion nor his standing, right? It depends on how mentally fit Adam is to weather criticism and not like backlash and whatever, right? Because I guarantee you that content creators, like after a debate or something, they'll try to like look up opinions about them. They'll try to look up opinions about yeah. So if you do actually think that Adam Mockler didn't do such a good job, you can tweet about it. You can tag him and like say in a tweet, yeah, hey, here's what I think that you can improve on. Okay, but just don't do hate shit. Okay, please do not do hate shit. Please do not do anything unhinged. Okay, if you're gonna like give critique, then just give critique. Okay, and I would encourage you to do that. But like just don't be hateful, please. Yeah, I think that part is really important. The more hateful you are, the more he's actually unironically going to be turning into a communist. Okay, because you don't want to drive away people. Like you want to be supportive but critical at the same time, right?
You also said, but it's not what you said. It says at that point it doesn't even matter, and I can understand.
Yeah. What I meant, and if you listen to what the conversation I was having afterwards, is what I meant is like it's impossible. And this is a thing that I brought up over and over again with Kamala Harris in 2024 is that there's nothing I can do to outflank the party. And one example I'll give you, I think you'll agree with. Kamala Harris got $1 billion, right? Massive war chest. She comes in hot. She comes out with this I thought it was going to be a visionary agenda. They choose Tim Walz. They're coming out of the NC. I'm a little shook in my confidence in the party. And they dump.
I also don't like how Adam Mockler is not supportive of Kamala Harris. I think that is also a big throw. I think that Adam Mockler actually has some opinions that I think are throws. Okay, I think they are throws, and you're giving too much of a bone to people like Hasan. Okay, like for example, I think that given 107 days that Kamala Harris had in office, it wasn't about the money that she had. Right, money is very meaningless if you don't have enough time to use it, or you don't have enough time to organize on how well you can use the money. Right. 107 days is nowhere close as to actually organize some kind of coherent campaign strategy, right? And even then she's done her very best, right? Even then she's tried all that she could. And yeah, we can critique Kamala Harris on the fact that she didn't go on to any Tucker Carlson podcasts or, Joe Rogan or anything like that. Yeah, sure, I agree with that. But at the same time, I think it's an unreasonable expectation to expect her to perform perfectly, right? Given the time frame that she has, right? It's not like she has infinite thinking time and she has infinite amount of time to like make together the best strategy, the most coherent strategy, right? That's impossible because guess what, right? It's not within that time frame. Maybe she did make a bad decision, like by not going to there, right? But it's like, how much can you do there? How much can you do there, right? I don't know, like. She didn't even have time to make that kind of decision in the first place. So it's like, it's a unrealistic thing to, shove onto her. And that I'll disagree with Adam Mockler on for sure. Yeah.
$30 million to the television market in Pennsylvania. And the polls didn't even move.
The biggest actual throw was telling Walz to stop going hard on calling maggots out for being weird. Yeah, I agree with that too. That was also a massive throw, but then again, you can't expect it to be perfect when she's only given 107 days, right? But if she was perfect given 107 days, would she have won? Probably not, right? Like the thing is that you're trying to make the assumption that, oh yeah, if she did everything even more perfectly, she would have won the election. When in a way, right, we don't know the result of that either way. She could have done everything perfectly and still lost, right? Obviously, she should have probably like still fixed her mistakes. This isn't the past for her to like, oh yeah, she shouldn't have made any mistakes, blah 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 blah, right? However, at the same time, I think that I think that yeah, I don't know. I think you shouldn't be a hindsight Andy about things, right? I don't think you should be like talking about hindsight like that, right? I don't think you should be like looking back at it with hindsight and going like, oh, she should have done this and this, she should have done this, and she would have won, right? Otherwise, you're like no better than the lefties who are basically saying like, okay, well, I mean, if she endorsed like Palestine, then she would have won, right? Hindsight is 2020, right? Hindsight is Joe Biden election win.
A little bit. That was a major sign of alarm, major sign for concern for me. At the time, I said this implies that people are.
And I don't think that Adam Mockler should ever grant hindsight Andy arguments. Okay, there has to be a term for this, right? Hindsight, right? Hindsight is the term for something like this, but there has to be like some fallacy that I'm sure we can point out towards, which is why I just go with hindsight Andy, because it's like the best way I can point it out. Hindsight Andy fallacy or whatever. Yes, I'm the one that invented it. Okay, all right. I'm just gonna go ahead and invent that one. Okay, because I just don't see any, because I've seen this fallacy pop up time and time again. This fallacy keeps on popping up constantly constantly this fallacy keeps on appearing, okay? Like constantly, whether it's with Joe Biden condemning the BLM riots, right? Or with Kamala Harris and the pro-Palestinian position, or Kamala Harris and talking about economics more, right? Like this is like something that keeps on happening. And I swear to God, it is such a big fallacy. It's such a massive fallacy, and it's wrong to analyze things through this specific lenses, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's just stupid. I hate it. I hate
the
it.
message, but they're not identifying with it. They don't like it. They don't like what Kamala Harris is presenting, because at that point, no matter how much money you spend, no matter how much you tell people that you're going to be better, that you're going to be better than the Republicans, and here is why, they were not responding positively to it. And that should have been a really important point for Kamala Harris to pivot away, go back to the drawing board, and potentially come out with a more bold vision for change. They didn't do that. And that was that's precisely what I mean when I say it's impossible for me to outflank $1 billion of ad spend, Taylor Swift endorsements, Beyonce endorsements. I'm not saying I'm a small bean and I'm just like utterly irrelevant. Of course.
No, we're not. I don't even think you can change the results of the election. That's not even what I claim.
That's what a lot of people yell at me over. They make it seem like I was the singular kingmaker or something.
That's really dumb. And any liberals saying that dumb, any liberals saying that you need to line up behind Gavin Newsom.
No one is saying that.
Why do you think so many liberals are mad at that Jennifer Walsh clip? What's your steal, man?
What do I think about it?
Like, no, why do you think so many liberals on Twitter
I know. It's the same. It's the same reason why everyone said the Bernie bros were the reason why Hillary Clinton lost. It's the same reason why people still say third-party voters are the reason why Kamala Harris lost, even though if all third-party voters, I'm sure you know, voted for Kamala Harris, she still wouldn't have won the election.
If Mockler has ended the debate, like at around the point where he confronts him on his hypocrisy of like explaining his terms, it would have been chef's kiss perfect. Okay, chef's kiss perfect. Okay, it would have been a perfect confrontation because Hasan would have looked like a retard, and all people would have gotten out of the debate was how Hasan is two-faced with his explanations, right? But now that like we are venturing towards the downfall version of like the second half of this debate. Now we're approaching the second half. Like this is the second half where Mockler barely says anything and Hasan just goes on for like entire like fucking 10 minutes like segments and shit, with Mockler just saying yes, yeah, I guess so, yeah, if liberals are saying that, I guess that's bad, or blah blah blah, blah. Right? Yeah, I really wish I really wish Mockler ended the debate like right there. Oh my god, rip, because the rest of it is definitely a throw. It's definitely a miss.
People looking for people looking for an alternative. It's not that their vision of what the Democratic Party should be doing is incorrect entirely. It must be something else. So they're just looking to blame someone else. And I'm fine being that guy. If they
I honestly disagree. I think a lot of the liberals I talk to and a lot of the people in my audience don't think what you just said. I've got a massive liberal audience online.
Yeah,
I didn't ask them about this. I don't know. But I genuinely think a lot of the criticism I saw on Twitter goes back to the conversation that I was kind of trying to like, not pin you down, but I was kind of trying to return to it over and over, is the way that you word these things on your stream. I genuinely think liberals take problem with that. I mean, yeah, some people will be looking for a scapegoat and will say that third-party voters like cost Hillary the election or cost Kamala the election. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's true in the case of Kamala, but I think that no one expects you to change the results of the election, or maybe not no one. No reasonable person expects you to change the results of the election. No reasonable person expects you to jump up and down and start throating Gavin Newsom 2 years before we even have our candidates there. Like, no reasonable person is going to say, if you would have said, I refuse to pre-commit to any candidate and I want to use my leverage and I want to make sure that we have an ideological battle and I want to come out on top, I'm not going to commit to anyone. I think you could have minimized the amount of liberal damage. And you did explain right after why you didn't vote for Kamala and how it was the same.
The clip was way before. The clip ended way before.
Yeah, but you're saying something different too now. You're saying it's out of your hands. But you did word it, and you're live a lot every single day, so you can't word everything perfectly. But you literally said at that point it doesn't even matter. One day prior, you said like Newsom is marginally better. When liberals see all of this in totality, it's like, wow, this guy doesn't think that the Democrats are even different, and this guy has a lot of apathy towards who wins. It came off as apathetic. And like, I mean, I think there's a common criticism online.
Do you feel like some people want to feel like I'm apathetic? Do you feel like, well, one, there's two different reasons for, there's two different things I want to mention here. One, the plurality doesn't vote, and therefore the plurality is apathetic, right? My audience, as I've demonstrated already, is not apathetic, and they are voting for the Democratic Party when push comes to shove.
I think the plurality would be less apathetic if we could illustrate more. I think the plurality is apathetic because people say there's a marginal difference between the parties.
Okay.
If we could illustrate.
This is a good point. So you think it's people like myself and others that are creating this apathy, and not the multi-billion-dollar messaging infrastructure of the Democratic Party that is making it seem as though the differences are either completely irrelevant for them,
no,
or inconsequential.
No, I think it could be both. It could be both and two things can be true.
So
the Democratic Party is definitely insufficient.
But that was the point I was making. I was saying like
incredibly insufficient. Okay, sorry,
sorry. Well, that is precisely my point, which is that I can't outflank the party. If the party is constantly communicating that like they're going to be moderate, they're going to have only marginal differences, but like they're going to be the adult in the room, and that's what they're communicating. My reflection on that as being devastating is not going to actually change people's minds that were going to previously vote for the Democratic Party and don't. And that's precisely the reason why virtually everyone in this community voted for Kamala Harris, regardless of the setbacks that she, regardless of her.
I want to see the numbers on that. Okay, I want to see the numbers of whatever the fuck he's talking about right now. This like conception of like, oh well, oh yeah, everyone in my community voted for Kamala Harris. I want to see that. I want to see the numbers. Okay, where are you pulling these numbers from? All right, I want to see it. Okay, did you run a community poll? Did you include the people who also did not vote in the first place?
Election hangups. And that's the reason why I don't necessarily care what liberals say on the internet. Like if they want to yell at me, it's fine. But one of the things that they consistently mention is like, oh, he's popular because he's shitting on the Democrats. And that is the problem. Like you're basically recognizing that the Democratic Party is an incredibly unpopular brand. And we have to fix that. If you want the Democrats to actually consistently and reliably win elections, which I care a lot more about the policy agenda than I do about like, Democrats as a brand, as a party winning, right?
Sure.
So that is the issue. And these guys don't understand that that's the issue. And constantly recycling harm reduction narratives over and over again doesn't actually make people on the outside, the plurality of voters that do have that apathy, take a different look at the Democratic Party. It just makes Democrats look like smug elitist assholes who are entitled to your vote. And for them,
I think it can be both and. It can be both and. The Democratic Party definitely needs to message better and draw the difference better. But I also think that the way that you speak about it, I'm not blaming it all on you, by the way, not even blaming it mostly on you. I think that the way people speak about it is that the parties are the same does create that type.
Yeah, but he's the biggest leftist content creator though, so you have to blame it on him, right? I sometimes like I get what Adam is trying to go for here. He's trying to say like, well, you're just one content creator, okay? You can't affect it. Well, no, right? Because you are the largest leftist content creator. If you say something, the rest follows, right? This entire online apparatus follows whatever Hasan thinks or believes, right? The entire lefty space follows what Hasan will take on, right? I wish it was true. I wish it was true that Hasan doesn't have that kind of influence, but ultimately he does, and you need to pin him on that, right? This is not something where you can just like hand wave aside and go like, well, I get it. You're just one person. You couldn't affect the outcome of the election. Well, at some point, you are a size that is big enough to actually influence the outcome of the election. I hate that it's like that, but it is the case. Liberals online are not making the same point that I'm making right now, but to some degree, yeah, I would even argue that maybe that is actually the case or whatever, right? But it's just, I just don't. Yes.
Of apathy as well, when they're not the same. We've walked through this entire stream.
You do recognize. I talk about the differences. If people that were watching the clips actually came and tuned into my to my live broadcast or even watched any of the YouTube videos or whatever, they would know that that's not all I say.
No,
right?
I watched multiple full-length videos, and you really blur the lines. And
yeah,
you
watch like multiple.
You do in the video.
Videos.
You said two things back to back. You said Democrats have literally written you out of existence. Later on, you say Democrats would essentially shoot you. It's fine to use hyperbole, but then
you're bringing up two clips. Those
are two different clips. No. It's in the same video. It's the same video.
I know, but I already explained to you that. But there's additional.
Okay, listen. Okay, if a person who is like fucking Pepe posting, if somebody was like trying to Pepe post about like Jewish conspiracies, and you can't tell whether or not like they are joking about it or not, you can't tell whether or not they're serious, and then they say something like, well, I wish that blah 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 Holocaust like revisionist type shit here, insert Holocaust revisionist type shit. Well, you can't just say, well, I was just exaggerating, or you can't just say, oh, well, I was just trying to make a point or whatever. Well, wait, no, I mean, there is just cause to suspect that you're being serious, right? If you're a socialist or you're a leftist, right, and you make some retarded ass statement that Hasan has made, right, then why wouldn't we suspect that you're actually being unironic about it? What? I hate that this form of gaslighting worked on Adam Mockler, dude. I expect this so much more from him. I'm gonna be real.
Things I say in between those two clips.
These two,
Like it literally is just common sense type shit. It's common sense. It's literally common sense type shit. Okay, this person literally says that he's a socialist. Okay, and then he argues against the Democratic Party, and he constantly makes shit against them. Wait, like you should be able to put two and two together, right?
Between these two strong declarative statements, you for a second say, yeah, sure, being a trans person in a blue state is probably better than a red state, and then you go back to saying the next statement.
The idea that and there are a million examples I can show you if you want to see it, but the idea that I don't actually maintain the validity of the harm reduction argument, I just don't present it as the number one solution. I recognize that there is a difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. The clips that people oftentimes will recirculate will be on issue-specific things like Israel, Palestine, like the continuation of genocide, right? Like both off of the genocide that unfolded when Joe Biden was president and Kamala Harris was vice president, and also the way that Kamala Harris communicated about what she would do differently.
Oh no, dude! I wish that. Oh fuck! Now I kind of wish that Adam. Now I wish Adam Mockler did more research on Israel versus Palestine, because fuck, Hasan is like wrong here and lying here too. Like he is. Oh my god! Wait, has Adam Mockler ever watched a debate between Ethan Klein and Hasan? Has he done that before?
From Joe Biden, which was unfortunately nothing, right? Like there are certain aspects of the we have a difference of opinion, or we have a different approach between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party that's just like not translating to the population at all. And there's good reason for them to actually there's good reason for the average person to not think that there's any major difference between the two parties. As far as genocide is still genocide. One is being conducted in a way where Trump is also saying additional unhinged shit. The other one is being conducted.
Yeah, but it's not just that, and Adam Mockler should also push back on this one as well, right? It's not just that, and I think Adam Mockler knows it, right? Under Trump, there's way more unhinged shit being done to the Palestinians, right? Under Kamala Harris, I think that even if you think it's a genocide, right, it would have been a way slower genocide, right? It would have been, like, again, I don't think it's a genocide, okay? But you have to objectively agree that the GNOME skeptic is surely a better pick than the GNOME obliterator, right? Like, of course, the GNOME skeptic is unironically a better pick than the GNOME obliterator, right? Like,
where Joe Biden keeps saying, "Oh, we have red lines," and then Benjamin Netanyahu keeps crossing them.
Good memes, that's
right?
Okay. Good memes.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Democrats need to stand the fuck up, and I think that this is an issue where Democrats definitely need to be meaningfully better than Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just like
no, Adam Mockler doesn't even know enough about this to say this. Why is he saying it? No, what do you mean better? You don't even know. What? And this sucks.
Because it's electorally beneficial, it's also unconscionable in general. And that was the reason why I said that given.
But I kind of understand too, because because sometimes as a content creator, you do have to sometimes pull shit out of your ass, okay? Sometimes you do actually, like, you don't know about something, but you give like a preliminary take on something where you're not really thinking about it. You go like, well, I mean, it seems like the Democrats should be doing better on this issue or whatever, right? But that's not the right thing to do here now, right? Like, especially when it comes to Hasan, I don't know, but
yeah. Both Kamala Harris's lack of interest in like.
So it would make you grumpy? Well, I'm not grumpy. I already watched this debate. Okay.
Communicating a different vision for what will happen with her leadership between United States and Israel, and given her tendency to lean into Joe Biden's agenda on migration.
People were looking for
the right wing bill. The right wing bill that they passed, that they packaged as a bipartisan bill that was like almost single handedly written by that fucking Oklahoma senator that basically offered money to build the wall. Like all of these things that they went back on. People are stupid, but they're not that stupid, right? If you say you're like anti build the wall for years and years, and then you're like right before the election on October 6, 2023, you unveil a spending package that has money to build the wall, people are going to look at that and go, oh, so Republicans were right all along, that immigrants do constitute a national security threat, and you guys were just fucking lying to us. And all you end up doing in that situation is you don't get the moderates to come to your side to go, well, there's a reasonable immigration agenda here, and the Democrats are the only party that's going to advance this reasonable immigration agenda. No, most people in the Democratic Party say, oh shit, I guess undocumented migrants are doing the rapes and the decapitations or whatever the fuck the Trump administration is saying.
I think
maybe they were
Kamala
right.
Kamala was pretty clear that that's not true, though. I mean, Kamala drew the line. I don't think she played into Trump's anti-immigration criminal rhetoric as much as she did.
But the concession is within the legislation. The concession, you don't come forward with well, first of all, she had plenty of fucking I'm going to be strong on the border videos.
Wait, were you okay with strengthening the border from Biden era? Did you want to continue Biden era policies? Because right now,
I thought the Biden era policies were horrendous because the first 100 days of immigration that he ran on, he did not accomplish at all. If you go back to 2021, I believe it's in the month of February, where I said, if the Biden administration, when the images came out of Customs and Border Patrol whipping the Haitian migrants at the Texas border, you remember?
Wait, what? In the first 100 days, he said?
Wake up! Hold the line. This hamlet shall not fall.
I know K-Life. Thank you for the raid. I don't know who you are, but thanks for the raid. I've never heard of you before, but thanks, I guess. Thanks.
They had the reins on horseback. And I said, the Biden administration promised a comprehensive first 100 days of dealing with the humanitarian crisis at the border. And they had a lot of really good policies in there. And those policies were supposed to revolve around expeditious processing of migrants that are coming in and offering them temporary protected status, going through expeditiously on their asylum applications, and making sure that they are relocated, appropriately all around the country. And they got so scared that the Republicans started instantly hitting the immigrants are coming in to do rapes lines over and over again, that they completely backed away from it. And they thought, as long as we don't address it, it'll go away. And then Greg Abbott came out, Ron DeSantis came out, and they did the whole human trafficking scheme, if you remember, where they took undocumented migrants that had crossed the border to legally apply for asylum. And then they shipped them to Long Island and all these other places with the express purpose of ruining the immigration process that was already underfunded. At the time, I said, Joe Biden needs to punish Greg Abbott. He needs to throw Greg Abbott in prison for human trafficking. He needs to do the same thing for Ron DeSantis. He needs to play hardball. Wow. They didn't do that. No one was held accountable. And all it did was create a $12 billion budget shortfall in places like New York City that the federal government did not give immediate aid to, that they could not give immediate aid to, because they purposely bricked the immigration system that exists, because these guys are supposed to be processed in Texas.
Funny how Hasan keeps talking about Gaza genocide, but waves away all the victims of the IRGC. What is the IRGC? Is that some term that I've never heard of before? Yeah, that's a term. I've never heard of that term before. But you can arguably you can say that for any atrocity that is being committed by any more left-wing coded organizations around the world, right? Like China with the Uyghur Muslims. I think in Azerbaijan, there might be another cleansing of the Armenians or some shit. There's something else going on there. There's multiple fucking other shit that is going on by more left-wing coded groups and whatever. And towards Muslims as well. China fucking hates Muslims, bro. And they hate them in a way where they want to genocide them. It's not even it's not even in a way where it's where it's the base liberal kind where it's oh, we value freedom and expression, and it's the kind where it's it's my fascism versus your fascism, and my fascism should win. It's yeah, that's pretty fucked, man. But then their fascism is it is not really fascism. I think they just want to live peacefully, bro. People in Xinjiang just want to live peacefully. Yeah. All of history is just fascist versus fascist, right? The vast majority of history is just authoritarianism versus other authoritarians, right? It was almost never a war of ideology, or of government structure ideology, okay? There are wars over religion constantly, but it's always authoritarianism versus authoritarianism. I'm pretty sure it's only a recent history thing where it's communism versus capitalism. I'm pretty sure that's only a recent thing. That I don't think that's a thing where I don't think that's always been a thing at all. Before, it was just land grabs. It was land grabs and wars of ideology between religion and stuff like that, right? But not ideology in regards to what we have now. Nowhere the same, I think, because the world is so much more interconnected. I don't know. You mean East Turkestan? Haha. Yeah. Depends on how much you want to have a deep dive over the last 120 years. Yeah, but that's more recent times, right? Most of history is just land conquering. Yeah, look at any thousands and thousands of years of shit. It's just land conquering. Communism is pretty new. Yeah, I would say so too. Capitalism is a lot more ancient, just because if you consider trading to be capitalism or capitalistic, or currency, farming currency, merchants and whatever, capitalism is much more ancient. Yeah. Arguably, you can say that communism is actually even more ancient than capitalism, because you know what? Of course, the philosophy was not there, but the cavemen, okay, the fucking Ice Age caveman type shit. These people were communistic, okay? They moved together as migrating fucking nomads, Okay, that moved from one group to another, one area from another, and they were communal, and they were like, it was probably much more reminiscent of like real anarcho-communism. Okay, but then people just want to go back to that age for some whatever fucking reason. It's like, oh yeah, we missed the times in which we died at like 40. Great, fantastic. I would love to die to a mammoth like fucking trampling me and shit, and like dying from fucking diseases that we literally cannot cure in any way because we don't have modern medicine.
The courts have adequate funds to have these.
Man, we sure want childbirth death rates to go back up to like 90%.
Guys be processed in the state of Texas, right? And they didn't do that.
Pissed.
They didn't do any of that.
I'm pretty sure the average age being 40 or 30 back then is completely misrepresented in a way, because I think I heard somebody say like the reason why it's so low is because because the childbirth rates were super high. That's why in that like the first like 3 years is like the most dangerous part of your life, but then once you're in the clear, then you have the capability of living up to like 60 or 70, like even back then, like as a homo sapien, right? But yeah, I mean, but I'm pretty sure you have to be like the one to clear it. You have to clear the first 5 years. Because most people do die, like people die so fast and so much in like the first 5 years because of like childbirth deaths, that like that it just drags down the whole entire average.
And that's the reason why over the course of the 3 years, Joe Biden went from having a popular agenda on immigration, winning the popular vote, on a much more progressive agenda on combating immigration with a more humanitarian framework, moving towards amnesty, which again has always been broadly popular as opposed to mass deportation. And he didn't do that. And then they conceded on the right-wing attitude, on the white nativist anti-immigrant sentiment. And that's the reason why they lost the election.
Yeah, I think that Biden's immigration policy left a huge vacuum for Donald Trump to then come in with the most far-right immigration policy possible.
No,
I don't
the border
think they
bill,
tried
the
to act
border
like all immigrants were
bill,
criminals
the
or tried to
border
demonize
bill,
them
come
in the same
on,
way.
the
But yeah, they
border
absolutely
bill.
messed up. And that kind of brings me to like a more affirmative message for the Democratic Party and how we need to not only run on things that excite people, run on things that actually turn people out.
It wasn't just Biden, by the way. Democrats completely conceded on the issue of immigration. You don't agree?
Like
as a national party.
No.
As a national party.
I think that the Democrats.
What was the border bill just straight up not a thing? Did Biden not try to get that passed, but then Trump like started calling up senators and congressmen to say like, hey, you know, you gotta not like vote for the fucking border bill because it has Biden's fucking name on it. Okay, like you gotta only support immigration policies when I am in office. Okay, so then my name can be on it, right? It's literally the most selfish like anti-American thing to do, and he's trying to like influence Congress outcomes by just giving congressmen like fucking calls on the phone like a fucking stooge, right? Like, fuck me, dude. Like, it's just actually so fucked. I hate it whenever people concede this point. It's so stupid. Like, dude, no. Like, Democrats do give a fuck about the border. They actually do want to work with the Republicans together on the border, on immigration and stuff like that. Okay, like, that's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. Why is Adam conceding this? Why is Adam conceding this? Adam, no. I don't know. Like I consider people like Adam, right? Like these political commentator types, they should know far more than I do, right? They do. They should know way more than I do. Okay, like they should. Okay, like this is a requirement. I'm a fucking drama tuber. Okay, I shouldn't be knowing all this shit. Okay, for this shit. Okay, I'm a fucking drama tuber. I love covering drama. Okay, drama is my domain. But then, all right, when I look at politics and you know, I literally learned the bare minimum. Okay, I just don't understand how you can even mess up on the bare minimum. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. How? And this is why I stick to drama, okay? Because drama is just simply more cheerful than politics, right? Drama shit doesn't matter, right? Like one person's career gets ruined, I don't give a fuck, okay? Bro, but then when it comes to politics, it's like the entire doom posting becomes real, okay? Like the dooming becomes substantive, right? Like
kind of just moving where most Americans are. They're just basically saying we should have a stronger border. We should make sure that people can come here legally in a safe way. We should make sure that people can come contribute to this country. But I think they're trying to end the abuse of the asylum process we saw under Biden. I don't agree that have they conceded fully to Republicans. Is that what you're asking me? No, Democrats have not conceded fully to
No,
Republicans.
not fully. Have they conceded the Republicans on the false notion that immigrants constitute a national security threat, you think?
I haven't seen that. No. Wait.
You don't think
which
that
Democrat?
the October 6th,
Wait,
2023
which-
bill was a concession to the faulty notion, the complete...
The one written by Langford?
Yeah, the one that...
Can you name one mainstream Democrat who's called immigrants a national security threat?
No, of course not. But that bill was packaged as a reasonable and just approach to the problem of criminal migration, like migration that was, and also then there's like the Lake and Riley Act and all this other stuff that came along after
bill,
Donald Trump.
I think that bill increased funding for asylum judges so that asylum seekers could be processed in a more speedy way. The bill was absolutely not perfect, but after 2 years of Biden, were we even in the majority when they were trying to pass this bill?
Biden went in and acted as though this was a bipartisan bill with little to no, and this is according not to me, but to numerous other advocacy organizations that said that this bill, unlike any other Democratic Party bill that was ever passed on immigration, that was ever advocated to pass on immigration, had little to none in terms of what you're talking about in terms of the courts. There was some funding for the courts, but the bulk of the courts was going to.
It looks like
the bulk
Kamala
of the
ran on a stronger pathway to citizenship too.
The bulk of the funding. Hold on. The bulk of the funding went to the apprehension, the ICE facilities, Department of Homeland Security, and funds that were about combating immigrant crime. Like that was the main focus of it. And the Democrats still had some residual fears about that, which is precisely the reason why a bunch of Democrats not only have voted to fund ICE, both under the Biden administration or give additional funds to ICE, but then also on top of that, voted for the Lake and Riley Act, which was heinous. I think you and I both agree on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and the reason why they found themselves with their pants down now when the issue has completely swapped to our side, my side, maybe not even the Democratic Party side necessarily, the way that they were communicating around it, because you still had Chris Murphy in I believe January or February talking about how, well, Joe Biden actually deported more migrants.
By the way, okay, this is just like Hasan is rambling right now, like he always does. But more importantly, okay, Adam is losing track of the plot. Okay, like he's losing track of the plot. The reason why he's losing track of the plot is because he's letting Hasan go on his spiel when none of this should change the answer that you shouldn't be voting third party. You should be voting for Gavin Newsom, right? That was the entire crux of this debate. The entire crux of this debate is that you should be voting for Gavin Newsom, all right? And you shouldn't be voting for JD Vance, right? Because even if there were Democrats that voted for ICE funding, why does that matter? Why does that matter in the grand scheme of things? Why does that matter in the determination of Gavin Newsom versus JD Vance? This is angling the topic away from the issue so then Hasan has a clean way out. Okay, like this is why. Okay, because all Hasan needs to do for this debate, because he's horrible at debating as well. Okay, is for him to just simply pretend that this is another stream and find excuses to do commentary. All right, that's all Hasan needs to do in order to win the debate. All right, all Hasan needs to do is just simply pretend that it's another stream and just simply do commentary. Okay, but just like fish in a barrel. Okay, just like that, right? Adam is falling for it, which is the worst part, okay? Like, we all know Hasan is bad, but like, I don't know, it's just disappointing. I guess it's disappointing because everyone hypes up Adam Mockler so much. Like, every single time, like, Adam Mockler appears on something, everybody goes like, oh my god, it's Adam Mockler! It's Adam Mockler! I don't understand where the hype comes from, but
then Donald Trump did, but he didn't do it in such violent ways as though that's like somehow supposed to be better, because all of that is a concession that like migrants need to be removed from the boundaries of the state. Like there's no need to make a concession like that, because you and I both agree that migrants are our neighbors. The difference between an undocumented person and a documented person is paperwork. That for 23 years prior to the existence of the Department of Homeland Security, were there deportations? Of course there were, every now and then. Having said that, they were conducted by the INS. It wasn't like this militant organization known as ICE that was specifically doing interior removals, because
is Piers Medi good? I have not watched it. I mean, is it? You tell me.
It was a civil offense. It was a paperwork violation. And that's what I want to get back to. I want to bring the clock back to a time where we had a more reasonable approach, because this is a nation comprised of entirely immigrants, with the exception of the indigenous population and black people.
If you could choose how the Democratic candidate in 2028, even throughout the primary, messages on immigration, how do you think they should do it for the vast majority of American people who think that Biden was weak on the border? And this is just what people think. I mean, I think that Biden had a lot of errors, and I think a lot of American people think that he was incredibly weak on the border. That obviously led a pathway to Donald Trump. Kamala Harris, obviously.
Yeah, but that's not
I don't even think she conceded as much as you're saying. I mean, her platform was
counter message. No, No, at no point do you cede ground
Kamala Harris
to the
was running on a
Republicans.
pathway to citizenship.
Yeah, so was Joe Biden, and then he didn't actually do that at all. That's my point. Like the amnesty framing is good, but that wasn't not only was that not the primary vehicle of her immigration agenda, the primary vehicle of her immigration agenda was the bipartisan bill that was actually more reasonable, and that Donald Trump was actually trying to undermine that because he wanted to use immigration as like a talking point, right? Like that was the communication
Kamala
strategy.
didn't run on Langford's bill. Kamala did not run on Langford's bill.
No,
Kamala ran on a pathway to citizenship, and I believe they did talk about how mass deportations would be bad. Definitely not sufficiently enough.
No, they ran border ads like talking about how she prosecutes transnational gangs. Like they were very clearly communicating that they were going to take a much harder approach because they were afraid. They were running scared, and they were afraid of the.
So how, if you're the
66%
Democratic
of Americans
candidate,
saying that they want mass deportation, they saw that poll and they freaked the fuck out.
if you're the Democratic candidate,
I mean, maybe, but can you really like blame her for that? Like seeing a poll and then making actions that appeal towards people of that poll? Like, really? Is that like such a damning thing to let happen by making a reaction to a poll? Like, yeah, I would blame like some people like Hutch. Like Hutch would be the kind of person who would be like, oh well, I mean, polls good. I love polls. Blah 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 blah. Right? But it isn't the worst thing in the world to be like reacting in accordance to the results of a poll, right? Like, oh fuck me, dude. Okay, should I even watch this anymore? Oh my god, this is so painful. It's so painful that I just don't want to watch this anymore.